If you like this video, why not subscribe?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the weekly recap Q&A. That's the show where I answer questions from last week and also share with you all kinds of interesting links that are down below in the description, although this week there aren't that many. But there are some. They accumulated on Facebook and Twitter, so I thought I would share them with you as well as answer some questions. If you have a question for me and you'd like to hear it on the show, the best way to get it on the show is to email me at thefrugalfilmmaker@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to answer you both through email and on the show, hopefully both. At least here, if not there. So this week, first of all, I should apologize for last week. Last week was finals week. I had the biggest test of my life in comprehensive testing, comprehensive evaluations for both the years that I've been here in grad school. And I was studying for it all week. And as a result, I wasn't able to do an episode of my show of any kind, aside from the Q&A show. I should have warned everybody. I guess I thought I was going to be able to do a show, and then I wasn't. And so as a result, there wasn't a show last week. So I apologize. That's the first time that's happened in a long time. But the testing's over, and summer is here. School's over for a while, and now I've, as many of you know, begun working on my thesis film. So that's going to consume most of my life for the next year. But that's why there wasn't a show, and I apologize. And hopefully we'll be back on track, and I'll have some good stuff for you in the summer when I have more time to work on the shows. So with that being said, let's jump right into the questions. Actually, I only have one question today, and that may have been due to the lack of content that I posted last week. But this one comes from Jesse Flores, and actually he's got multiple questions that are all good questions in here, so I'm going to answer all of them. He asks, "Hi, I have the same shotgun mic you have, the Sennheiser ME-66 with K6 power. I had a question about plugging that into my Canon HG10. I've tried asking around, but to no avail. So then I noticed on your shoulder rig video that you mentioned that mic. So, what would I need to do to plug my mic into my camera?" And Jesse's asking about the Sennheiser ME-66, if you don't know, is an XLR shotgun mic. And if you have a camcorder, or most standard cameras don't have XLR inputs. When I say standard, I guess I should mean like consumer cameras don't have XLR inputs, so you need some kind of adapter. The cheapest one is simply an XLR to 1/8" adapter, or a 3.5 millimeter adapter. They're about $8. I'll leave a link below for that. That's the simplest and least expensive version. Then he says, "Do you recommend me getting a Zoom H1? It all depends on what you want to do. The Zoom H1 is one of two inexpensive digital audio recorders that are really good for an entry-level recorder. They around $80 to $100. If you watch them on Amazon, that price will fluctuate, but that's usually what you're going to pay. That's the Tascam DR-05 and the Zoom H1. I've said before, the Zoom H1 is better. They both sound equally good. The Zoom H1 is a slimmer, lighter digital recorder, and it's probably best if you're going to body mount it on somebody. Like if you're shooting a wedding, let's say, and you want to put a microphone on the groom, you can mount the Zoom H1 on them, and it's relatively invisible, because it's small and thin and light. The DR-05 is a more robust recorder. It's bigger. It's going to be able to take more abuse. If you drop both of these on the ground, accidentally of course, the Tascam DR-05 has a better chance of survival, because the Zoom is really lightweight and kind of not flimsy, but it's just made out of really light materials, plastic, and it's just not as sturdy as the Tascam. So I think the Tascam is a better all-around recorder, because you can still body mount it, but it's still bigger and heavier. It's just bigger and heavier because it's just a beefier case. But the Zoom has its uses also, and I use it all the time. I'm very happy with it. I like it. There's no menu structure to fiddle with. It's all buttons, and I kind of like that too. So you have to ask yourself if you need an external recorder, if you're doing double system sound, meaning your camera is going to record video and you want a separate source for audio, because the separate audio source, no matter how good your camera is, the separate audio source will probably have better electronics for audio, because that's what it's built for. Where most camcorders and even DSLRs, you know, the electronics they use for audio in those cameras are pretty cheap. So that's why you get hiss and inferior sound, is because you're depending on these cheap preamps and everything else in your camera, where they're probably cutting corners on anyway. But the digital audio recorders will be, they're dedicated to sound, so they sound better. They're dedicated to audio too, not just like recording a lecture or something like that. They have audio meters, they have a way to adjust those meters, and they have good microphones. Usually the built-in mics are pretty good. All right. Next he says, I saw you put down that you are using some type of adapter to the recorder. What is it? Okay, he's referring to the XLR box that I have. It's an XLR interface and passive mixer. It's made by Sign Video. They're about $150. I've had this thing for probably 10 years. It's lasted through 3 cameras. It's got a thread on the bottom so you can mount it to the bottom of your camera and then mount it to a tripod at the same time. It's got more things. Obviously, if it's $150 versus an $8 adapter cable, it's going to have more features. Some you might not even need. So like it's got like a ground loop thing on it, so if there's a buzz in your audio, you can flip the switch and it'll take the ground loop out if there is one, and solve that problem. It's a passive mixer, so you can actually mix 2 channels into whatever you're recording on, whether it's a recorder or your camera. You can put unbalanced mics in it. You can put XLR mics in it. It's got jacks for both of those. So it is very, very handy, but for most people, might not even need that. If all you need to do is get your mic into your camera, then I'd say adapter cable. If you want more features, you want to be able to mix 2 channels into one, or maybe 2 channels of different audio different sources, like an unbalanced mic and a balanced mic, XLR, and an 1/8 inch input, those are great. But again, it's more expense. So the flip side of that is the thing's lasted me forever. There's hardly any moving parts other than the pots, the potentiometers that you use to adjust the levels on the mixer side. But it's made out of metal and it's sturdy, and I really like mine. But I don't know if you'll need it. You just have to ask yourself if you need all those features. Is it necessary to use that adapter to make the mic and zoom work together? One or the other is necessary. You either need an adapter cable or that box. You need some way of converting your XLR input into an 1/8 inch or smaller input that goes into your camera or your recorder. You have to have something like that. It won't just plug in. The connectors are totally different. If the adapter is needed, which type of recorder would I need so I can record digitally and without the use of an adapter? Okay, now you're looking at a digital audio recorder that has XLR inputs. The least expensive that I've seen is the Tascam DR-40. If you watch it on Amazon, or if you're a member of the Facebook group, I will always post when this recorder drops to a crazy cheap level. Like recently it dropped to, I've seen this happen twice in the past year. It dropped to $117 about a year ago, and then just recently, I think it was last week, it dropped to $118. That is a steal for that recorder, which is very good. And if you have an XLR mic and you don't want to go through an adapter, notice the recorder, if you can get it for $118, is cheaper than the XLR box that I use, which is $150. So if you get that recorder, you can pretty much not ever use the box again, unless you want to mount it to the bottom of your camera, or you want some of the features that that box has that the DR-40 doesn't, which is very few, maybe like the ground loop thing. But the DR-40 is an excellent recorder from what I understand. I don't have one personally because I've got the zoom and I've got this adapter, and for me to buy a DR-40 would seem probably, it's not really necessary because I've got the ability to use XLRs with my recorder. So anyway, lastly, could you link me all of your gear, please? Probably not going to do that, Jesse, just because that would be an insanely long list. Not necessarily that I've got a lot of stuff as far as, well, I've got all this gear, all this pro gear, because I don't. A lot of my gear is cobbled together, and if you've been following the channel at all, you notice that it's sort of a mishmash of stuff that I've pieced together over the years. Maybe I'll leave you some links below to like my audio crate and my light kit and things like that, which aren't something that you buy in the store, but something that you piece together over time, which is one way to get maybe a higher end setup, well, higher end result. I don't say setup because a lot of my stuff is, as you know, cheap and inexpensive, and I'm repurposing a lot of it. It's not made to do specific things, but I've been able to repurpose a lot of stuff and put into those kits. So I'll leave you a link to those below. But as far as itemizing every single thing that I have in gear, you just have to keep paying attention to the channel to kind of see what pops up, because that would probably be a crazy long list, and I don't really know if I have time to do something like that. But hopefully I've answered all of your other questions, and hopefully anyone else who's watching this. And there are a lot of birds right outside the window right now eating worms out of the ground. It's kind of cool. Anyway, so that's it for this week. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of links below this week. Maybe everybody else had finals too, and so they were busy, too busy to contribute to the Facebook group in that department. But anyway, if you want a hub for all of the stuff that I'm doing, that's thefrugalfilmmaker.com. That's my blog. Then there's always, the Facebook group. There's Twitter. Of course, there's the YouTube channel, and all those links can be found down below in the description if you're interested in more of that. My thesis film collection day is getting underway. I have a production meeting this week, first big production meeting with all the department heads. If you're curious about seeing a film, short film, go from beginning to end, keep following the blog and you will see I'm posting everything, anything that happens with any kind of media. We'll have video, pictures, things like that will be up on the blog if you're curious about that. And of course, it's all going to lead up to a Kickstarter campaign probably in July, where I'll be asking for everybody's help to help me fund my film. Hopefully I've given you something with this channel and things that you can build for a lower price than the retail version. Hopefully you can maybe help me a little bit get my film made so I can get out of college finally. Anyway, this is the recap Q&A, and if you're making movies this week with the summer starting, good luck.